The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, good morning. We are off and rolling here on a Monday. I hope everybody had a great weekend. Let's do this. Happy Monday. Justin Kinner, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett, Casey McCollister. This is Off the Bench, presented by UDF, United Dairy Farmers. Guys, good morning. Happy Monday or Monday. I don't know how happy it is for you guys, but hope you had a good weekend. How are we feeling this morning?
Yeah, today is Monday. Today is Monday. That's the day that comes after Sunday, unfortunately. And it takes a big fall because of that. So today's Monday stinks. You get to watch basketball weekend and have some
70 hours of hoops and then just cold turkey today.
Yeah, and then have some good times. And then, unfortunately, I mean, you don't even have the crown to look forward to. That's another couple of weeks. So
that is so wild. That's 2 weeks away still. That doesn't tip off yet. Like that's insane.
And the transfer portal's open. Transfer portal's open. Xavier's Trey Green has entered the transfer portal. That's the biggest name to leave Xavier this past weekend. So you have to look forward to that. Musketeer fans. As for the Bearcats fans, again, our season's not over yet. We play in April,
of course.
So Bearcats have a lot to look forward to.
I mean, how many teams can say?
Crown.
How many teams can say they get to play? The end of their season in April.
Correct. Not many.
An illustrious group, if you look through the history of college basketball, have ended their season in April.
So
Bearcats will be one of them.
Bearcats will be one of them. I'm very excited. It was. Listen, we'll get into it. We'll get into the March Madness,
or
the lack thereof. But yeah. We certainly watched basketball weekend, and now we're here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Texas tried to take my coach and failed. Not everyone here today can say that. So sorry to those who lost their coach.
I got to be a Xavier.
We won't name names.
No. People are very upset. People are very upset that the coach that left the program once before came back and left again. Who could have seen it coming?
I couldn't have.
Yeah, I've seen the reaction to that. I know we're about to touch on that, but I was surprised that they were surprised that this happened. It was just a matter of if, not when, but or when, not if, I should say. But all right. And Casey, good morning. How are we? Happy Monday. How are we feeling in the studio?
Good morning. It's pretty good. I did not actually watch a whole lot of college basketball. I was at Miami over the weekend, and softball, man, they swept. I mean, they're just back better than ever. They didn't miss a beat. So
I saw your U.S. men's national team avenge their loss to Panama against Canada, right?
Sure. Yeah.
No, they lost. They lost.
They lost again.
Yeah, they ended this tournament winless. So the golden generation starting off 0-2.
Yeah, tough one. Yeah, and Sunday I spent all day working on the nursery, so I didn't do a whole lot of sports watching this weekend, unfortunately, guys. I spent it.
Well, you were watching sports, just not the national broadcasts.
Yeah, just not the madness.
watch
of March.
cbox.com.
But it's not really that mad because
That's
just,
true.
It's
That's
kind
true.
of a normal March, I guess.
Casey, how does it feel that I just simply start the show? Casey, how are we? You tell us how you're doing. And Jacob and Elliot both, they find one of your sports and they just like to dunk on it. I don't have a problem with that. It's entertaining. But I don't know if it's entertaining for you. I mean, you just take it. I don't get it. You don't have any shots. I think it's because you follow the teams they do. So to take a shot at one of their teams would be to take a shot at your team.
You got to diversify. Yeah, you got to diversify.
Yeah, I need to find a different team or a different fandom from them. But yeah, I mean,
natural disasters.
The natural disasters, the avalanche. But we've been doing this for like 6 months, and the same bits never get tired. So we got to just keep rolling with it. Got to keep rolling with the punches and let them continue to dunk on the teams that actually win while their teams that they root for lose. So.
And you. Also the teams you root for.
Yeah.
You have UC. UC's a punching bag. You can punch UC down until your heart's content.
I don't have to punch them down because everyone else does that for me.
Elliot, didn't he jinx like 10 of your games this year?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have to do much.
You did. But I think if you just like breathe, you're jinxing the Bearcats. So not much exciting going on there.
All right. Well, there was a lot of college basketball over the weekend, but there was also a lot of other sports going on too. Just nobody knew about it. But luckily, we have our secret weapon. We have Elliot Rearing, who's going to tell us all about the world of sports that existed outside of college basketball, all while updating you on all the stuff that happened in college basketball. Let's kick off the show, tip off the show, if you will, here on a Monday with Elliot's headlines.
Score updates, breaking news, local and national headlines, whatever's going on in the world of sports, Elliot has you covered. Off the Bench brings you Elliot's headlines.
That's right. And really, we're just going to talk about college basketball. I mean, if you think I watched any sport outside of college basketball over the last weekend, you're crazy. And to be quite honest, it doesn't matter. Florida, they came back to beat UConn 77-75 yesterday. Dan Hurley said after the game, and I'm going to misquote it a little bit just for our radio listeners, hope they don't screw you like they screwed us, he said to Baylor as he left the arena.
Baylor went on to get screwed exactly like UConn got screwed.
Well, they lost by 60.
The foul discrepancy was mad. It was 13 fouls on Baylor to 2 on Duke at one point.
That's fair. Duke won by 23 in that game. Cooper Flagg 18-9 and 6. Kentucky, for all you Kentucky fans out there, you got your coach, Mark Pope. He's got them dancing even further. Kentucky's moving on after beating Illinois 84-75. It was never really even a game.
That's a game Cal would have lost for sure.
Correct. Brea had 23 points, 6 boards. They are moving on. Alabama, they were never in trouble. They glide past St. Mary's.
Never in trouble
80-66.
Yesterday. They were in trouble since the last time we spoke.
Bobby Moe gave him a little bit of trouble. St. Mary's.
I lost a few pounds on Friday, just breaking a sweat in an unnamed sports bar, and man, it was rough. I did not expect it to be that close. Lost a lot of faith going into the weekend, but glad they focused up. Third straight Sweet 16 for the Alabama Crimson Tide, second time in program history, first time since the 70s. Also, in the last 5 years, only 4 programs have reached at least 4 Sweet 16s. Houston has reached 5. Gonzaga, Arkansas, and Alabama have all reached 4.
Yeah. Continuing on here, Maryland. If there was any madness that happened over the last 4 days, it was this. Derek Queen hit the buzzer beater to give the Terps 72-71 victory over Colorado State. It was absolutely heartbreaking for the old Colorado State men's basketball program. They tweeted this after the game. I guess they tweeted both
during the game. The first tweet was when they hit the deep 3 to take the 1-point lead with about 7 seconds left, and then the second tweet, the broken heart, right after Derek Queen hits the buzzer beater and sends them home. So that's the both sides of the coin there in March Madness. Colorado State, their fans and their players got to experience it all.
That is correct. Ole Miss destroyed Iowa State 91-78, the final score on that one. Michigan State gets past Pitino in New Mexico 71-63. That was kind of in jeopardy for a little bit. Arizona, they hang on to beat Oregon 87-83. Brutal for those of us who had Oregon plus 3.5. Absolutely brutal. Those were yesterday's scores. Some nuggets about the NCAA tournament. The SEC has 7 in the Sweet 16. That is the most from one conference in the Sweet 16 in the history of the NCAA tournament. I might have to be wrong about it. I'm not going to say I'm wrong about it, but I might have to be.
I think me and the rest of the SEC backers in the world might have overreacted to losing a couple double-digit seeds in the first round.
Yeah.
Because when you have this many 1s and 2s and really dominant teams, and even the 10 seed Arkansas has proven that they can hang with everyone when they're healthy. It's a really, really good conference, and then they're proving it in March, which was always the worry. So, yeah, I'm glad, and only one SEC matchup, so potentially 6 teams in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, that's right. Colorado State, with Colorado State's loss, this is the first NCAA tournament since 2007. Since 2007, with no team seeded 11th or lower.
Wow.
In the Sweet 16.
Also the lowest amount of conferences ever in the Sweet 16, just the 4 power conferences.
How about that? How about that? Heading over to the NBA, a little bit of NBA news. I guess not really, just scores. The Jokic-less Nuggets, they snapped the Rockets' 9-game winning streak, 116-111 the final. The Thunder, they get a 2-point win over the Clippers, 103-101 last night. The Cavaliers, they win by nearly 30. They win by nearly 30 over the Utah Jazz, 120-91. And the Pistons, they beat the Pelicans 136-130. As we mentioned, some coaching news in college basketball. Drake's McCollum, he's heading to Iowa. Texas, obviously nearing a deal with Sean Miller. It is important to note that that deal is not done yet. I mean, if it would be an all-time story if all that broke yesterday and then he's just back.
Yeah, Pete Thamel did tweet earlier this morning, maybe it was later yesterday, that they expect it to be completed in the near future. Usually when you see language like that, it is all but done in terms of these tweets from major outlets. But I guess we'll see. Hold your breath, Xavier fans. Maybe he'll come back for another 2 years before he leaves for a bigger job.
Those are your headlines.
And there you go, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. Jocelyn Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Ruring, and Jacob Tissett with you here on a Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. We'll step away for a few moments. Let's pick up with some college basketball talk. A lot of reaction coming out of the first 2 rounds, if you will. By the way, the first 4 seemed like forever ago. Selection Sunday seemed like forever ago. I mean, we had Selection Sunday, you had the first 4, you had the first round, you had the second round, the Sweet 16 is set. And although ratings have been through the roof for this tournament, it just seems like this has not been the most exciting tournament. It's March Madness, but minus the madness. Why is everyone so down on the first 2 rounds of the tournament? We'll discuss more when we come back. This is Off the Bench, presented by UDF. You know, you look at the Sweet 16 matchups, the fact that you're going to get Auburn and Michigan. I think it's a hell of a matchup. Ole Miss and Michigan State. You know, Florida and Maryland, Texas Tech and Arkansas. I mean, Kentucky and Tennessee, these Sweet 16 matchups. Houston and Purdue, really excited about that matchup right there. Duke and Arizona. The Sweet 16 matchups are fantastic. I can't wait for those. And a lot had to happen to set up the stage for this. And I think what people really tune in for the first and second round especially are those Cinderella runs. I think it's, call it March Madness. I think what makes it, what the madness is, honestly, it's all the upsets and the chaos that kind of transpire in the first and second rounds of the tournament. The problem is this tournament's been pretty chalk. And normally that's not a horrible thing. And I think that the NCAA tournament, I think that the ratings are actually going to be better at the back end of the tournament than what we've seen in recent years. But I also feel like the first round, second round of the tournament took a hit. Although I keep seeing graphics coming out saying how ratings are through the roof for the first 2 rounds of the tournament. Based on social media reactions and just watching the tournament over the weekend, I don't get all warm and fuzzy inside. I've enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm loving all the wall-to-wall basketball that we're getting from, noon until late at night, obviously. But there's been hardly any buzzer beaters. There's been really no upsets. I mean, Robert Morris almost pulled it off. Alabama pulls away late. I know Jake, right? McNeese's run, obviously, was a quick one, a little one and done. And obviously they lose their coach and half the roster is going to follow him to NC State. And you have a manager that's like the face of the tournament right now, I guess. I mean, what is your guys' takeaway? Thumbs up, thumbs down. What's the vibe of the first 2 rounds of this tournament? I love the Sweet 16 matchups, but the path to get there, has it been good in your opinion? Do you think this has been a bad tournament a couple rounds in?
It's been terrible. It's been absolutely terrible. And I'm one of those people that will disagree with Oh, well, the Final Four is real good. Well, the March Madness mantra isn't built on the Final Four being good. It's built on the first 2 days. It's built on that Thursday, Friday, and having unlimited basketball from noon to midnight. That's what March Madness is, and we haven't had that. You know, the games haven't been good. They haven't been close. There's been a couple decent games. The Baylor-Mississippi State game was okay. I think up until the Maryland-Colorado State game, the game of the tournament by far was Xavier versus Texas. That was the best game of the tournament. Up until the buzzer beater yesterday, I think the one shining moment was the kid with the boombox at McNeese for like half the video. And the other half is just uncontested layups by Houston and Duke. Like that's just what this tournament has been. It's been utter and complete chalk. For those of you who like that later on, that's good for you. I'm happy for you. For those of us that like to see the upsets and the buzzer beaters and the game winners and the close games, we lost this weekend. It was a bad weekend. And really, it's been the past 2 years we've had a pretty miserable go at it in the first 2 days.
We had an 11 seed in the Final Four last year.
Yeah, I mean, I would say still the whole first round last year wasn't great. I think that there were more upsets than there were this year, but that doesn't mean it was better. I mean, I just think it was a little bit, a little bit more March Madness-y than this year. So I'm pretty disappointed. Again, Jacob's a fan of Alabama. He gets his team, and then they're going to go far in this tournament. So that's like, if you're a fan of Kentucky, they're going far in the tournament. If you're a fan of one of the teams still left, you're very, very pleased with how this tournament's gone. But for those of us who don't have really a rooting interest, it's been pretty terrible to watch.
I think we're finding out, or at least I am finding out throughout the way this tournament's playing out, is college basketball fans don't like good basketball. Good teams are playing really, really well and taking care of bad teams and moving on, and the teams that we expect to compete for a championship are proving that they're championship contenders. And, as I said on Friday, I thought every 1 and 2 seed would be here on Monday except for maybe St. John's against Arkansas, and that turned out to be exactly correct. I think chalk is a very good thing. I think when you have great teams should be able to play deep into March. That's always been the confusing thing about March Madness, is when you have a good team, play 35 games in the regular season and look really good, how do they all of a sudden fall off a cliff at the beginning of March and get upset? That hasn't happened this year, and I think that's a good thing. I would much rather have a little bit of a quote-unquote boring Thursday and Friday than have, an 11 or a 9 or an 8 or 10 in the Final Four. That stinks. Watching blowouts this weekend is much, much worse than not having a couple upsets in the first 2 weeks or in the first 2 days. Not a single double-digit spread in the Sweet 16. That's great basketball, and that's really what I'm excited to watch. When I'm filling out my bracket, every single matchup that I filled out, deeper down the line that I was excited to see, I'm basically getting to see, and that's much, much better than watching, Florida play Colorado State on Thursday night. That would be a terrible game. I'm much, much more excited to watch Walter Clayton and Florida face the Crab Five. That's going to be an electric game. If Tennessee and Kentucky or one of them got upset beforehand, we wouldn't have got the rematch here from the first 3 times that they played this regular season. I think that's going to be an awesome matchup. We have great games on the Sweet 16 this weekend, and you don't get that if you have a bunch of upsets early in the tournament. I think this is a massive, massive net positive for the tournament.
I would trade away the Sweet 16 and everything after it for a good first 2 days. That's just how I've always operated with March Madness. By far my favorite days, and it disappointed me. I understand Jacob's point. I get it. You want good teams later on in the tournament, so there aren't any blowouts. I understand it. I just want good basketball in the first round. I want the upset. I want the excitement. I want the buzzer beater.
I would argue it takes bad basketball for those bad teams to upset. If they play good basketball, the good teams advance, which is what we.
Your definition of good basketball is different than mine. My definition is close games. And we didn't have that many close games this tournament. And even the final scores of some of those weren't as close. Like that Clemson-McNeese game, one of the better games this tournament ended up being like a 2-point game. That game was miserable for 90% of it. They just got hot in the last 3 minutes. So I will say, for those of you who like, elite, the best of the best college basketball, I think you're going to be satisfied over the next week and a half. For those of you who wanted to see more buzzer beaters and upsets, you're going to be disappointed because there's not that much left. There's only one double-digit seed still left, right? Arkansas?
Yes, Arkansas is the lone double-digit seed.
Yeah, that stinks. I will say, good for Coach Cal and Kentucky. They're both winners after that one, yeah?
Yeah,
they're both winners.
I would say so. I think at this point now, if you're a Kentucky fan, you just are begging them to lose this round because you can't go shorter than Cal goes this tournament.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they're going to be able to get over the hump against Tennessee. So you got to be big Texas Tech fans if you're a Wildcat down in Lexington.
So I agree with I do think that this is one of those down the middle, I think both sides are correct, and I'm usually not one of those people. I don't like being a down the middle person. I think the first 2 rounds of the tournament has been very boring, but also at the same time, I don't think it's been unsuccessful for the NCAA as well when you get these Sweet 16 matchups. I just went and looked it up. Ratings are up. They're plus 6% from a year ago at this time, and last year there was a ton of madness. Elliot, I know you said last year, there wasn't a lot. I mean, last year they had 8 double-digit seeds. There was 8 double-digit seeds that won in the first round to go to the second round, which created a lot of that chaos. You had the James Madison, you had the Oakland or the Horizon League, of course. You had a lot of those. NC State, who not just a double-digit seed that won, but made it all the way to the Final Four. There was a ton of madness last year. There was great ratings last year, but the ratings for the NCAA tournament, they dipped as each round went on, that's not a shot at that. That's just normal, right? You have less fan bases, less teams tuning in for all the madness of this. What I'm curious about, to Jacob's point, when you look at all the great 16 seed matchups, what I'm wondering is, we just saw what a lot of people would deem to be a boring first opening weekend of the tournament, with the first and second rounds basically going chalk, a lot of blowouts, no close games, no upsets, no buzzer beaters, all that fun stuff. The ratings are up 6% from last year, even with all the madness. What I'm curious about is, with all these great Sweet 16 matchups that could set the stage for great Elite 8 matchups and what could be a magical Final Four, national championship, I'm curious about the ratings moving forward. The ratings the first weekend are always going to be high in some capacity because that's just when everyone's locked in. But what I want to know is college basketball about to win this debate with us not casual, but with us fans who just want madness? Are they about to win this debate and end up having these monster ratings for much better matchups deeper into the tournament? Or is Elliot and fans like that going to be right where, hey, there's no madness, there's no drama, there's no double-digit seeds, there's none of this, there's no intrigue, I'm out? I am curious to see what the ratings depict after this upcoming weekend with the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 rounds.
I don't think anyone like Elliot, maybe I don't want to necessarily speak for you, but I don't think anyone in your seat, as mad as you could possibly be, is going to not watch the Sweet 16.
Correct.
Right. And I think the vast majority of common fans are much more excited to turn on their TV for Arizona, Duke, or Maryland, Florida than they are for, what did we have a couple years ago when San Diego State, Miami, and Florida Atlantic all went to the Final Four? I don't think a lot of common fans are watching that tournament. I don't think they're watching those late round games. That's not exciting to see. I think this tournament, this round, and especially if these higher seeds continue to move on, the ratings are just going to grow and grow and grow. I think it's going to be a phenomenal Sweet 16, an even better Elite 8, and a great Final Four with maybe all 4 1 seeds, which some people will say is a bad thing, but when the 4 best teams in your sport play like it for the entirety of the year, I just can't find a way to point to that as a bad thing. So I think that the teams that are great for 35 games in the regular season, proving that they are actually great, means a little bit of a positive for college basketball as a whole, as opposed to, just the true randomness of it. I think this is a great thing, and maybe a new era of college basketball where it's going to be harder for these smaller seeds to get upsets as these bigger teams build, more depth and stuff like that in the portal.
I've had this debate before. I'm not going to go into it today. One of my biggest gripes with college football is that it's always the top of the top, the chalk. They always win it. That's always been the difference with March Madness. Not necessarily with the winner, but it's with the early rounds that you really get to see a couple of those little schools, those no-name schools shine. And that's why I watch. That's why I've always watched March Madness. That's why it's my favorite thing. It's my favorite time of the year. Saying that, Jacob's right. I don't stop watching basketball because I don't like the lack of upsets.
I saw some people saying that if Colorado State didn't win last night and we had all single-digit seeds, they were going to stop watching.
Well, maybe that's the case. I don't think that's.
I'd be impressed.
Listen, if there's something to gamble on, I'm going to be watching. So that's what I have at least going forward. And like you guys said, it's good games. It's going to be a great Final Four. I don't see a world where at this point where the 1 seeds lose. I think it's the 1 seeds tournament to get to the Final Four this year.
I think
even then I think there's like 2 teams that are like it's obvious. I almost think it's obvious who's going.
If we would have gotten out of the March Madness, try to find madness headspace, we could have. We could have seen this coming.
I think we could have seen it.
These top 4 teams are in an echelon of net rating that only 4 teams in the history of college basketball are in.
Yeah.
So, this is distantly the most top-heavy field we've ever seen, and now they're playing like it. So, I just think it gives a lot of validity to the regular season. I think as much as people try to throw out the college basketball regular season, this tournament is giving a little bit more credence to that than maybe we've ever seen before, because usually the whole thing has been, it doesn't matter how much basketball you watch. You print out the bracket in March, you look up some rosters, look up some box scores, fill it out, and you have the greatest chance as anyone else. But this year, if you watch basketball all year long, your bracket is better than anyone else's. The good teams are playing well, and I just think for the overall of the sport, maybe not March Madness in a vacuum, but for the sport as a whole, I think next year when college basketball tips off and people aren't usually watching those first couple weeks or months until you get to conference play, I think maybe this year the great teams and the great players making these runs, maybe that changes as you go into next season.
One thing I want changed for next season, the Saturday and Sunday tip-off games the tip-offs need to change.
Yeah.
The fact that we're having a 10 o'clock game last night for no reason is the most upsetting thing I've ever seen. Why do we have 2 standalone games at 12 and 2? What is the point? Yeah. What is the point? Somebody figure that out. The networks have to clear space for March Madness. They got to clear the space, because I'm tired of watching games into 1 a.m. for no reason other than the fact that they want to be lazy. I don't need 7 games from 7 to midnight. Just spread them out evenly. That's all I've ever wanted.
I turned on, it was either True TV or TBS, one of those channels that you don't use except for these couple weeks.
Correct.
And it was during the standalone games that make no sense. And I was like, there's got to be a second game on.
No.
So I flip it over. They're playing Shazam. They're playing the movie Shazam.
That's a good movie.
Play a second basketball game.
1 or 2. Shazam 1 or 2.
I didn't watch long enough to tell you for sure. I just saw Zachary Levi in tights.
All right, Off the Bench, presented by UDF. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Ruring, and Jacob Tissett with you here on a Monday. We'll step away for a few moments. When we come back, we saw a lot of double-digit seeds advance in the tournament last year. We saw a lot of upsets. Is this just a one-off tournament where the madness is gone? Is this just an outlier NCAA tournament where, as Jacob mentioned, he talked about the historic net rankings for a lot of the teams sitting there at the top? Is this a sign of things to come moving forward with NIL and all the top players being poached and college basketball becoming very top heavy like football, as Elliot mentioned? Or is this just an outlier of an NCAA tournament? I see a lot of people panicking right off the bat, saying that this is what the new March Madness is going to look like moving forward. Do you guys agree? We'll discuss more when we come back. This is Off the Bench, presented by UDF. All right, and we are back. This is Off the Bench. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Ruring, Jacob Tissett. I know the last couple of shows said we're going to get to Reds, and then we don't get to Reds. I promise you, we are going to get to Reds. The Reds play baseball this week. Terry Francona and what is left of the Cincinnati Reds roster will be in action in Dayton tomorrow night, and then they'll be in action on opening day coming up on Thursday. So, yes, I promise you we will get to the Reds coming up here around the corner. Last thing here on college basketball, and then we'll talk some NFL Reds and all that fun stuff. But you guys were talking about Duke during the little break there.
Yeah.
I don't remember. We've seen a lot of good teams in college basketball over the years. I mean, UConn just won back-to-back national championships. And I've watched UConn, and they look like the best team in college basketball the last 2 years. They were just very, very good, though. I watched Duke, and I'm seeing something different. You guys were talking about the buzzsaw that is the Duke Blue Devils. This is one of the best Duke teams I've seen in quite some time. I mean, like, this team, it's not just that they're winning a lot of games, that they won the ACC, that they're a 1 seed. They looked the part. This is one of the best teams I've seen in a long time, as far as just obviously having a star player, obviously, in Cooper Flagg. But they're so damn deep. They have so much talent around him, too. And obviously Shire has a good shot here at getting to his first Final Four and winning a national championship as a head coach. how we feel about just how good this Duke team is. Is this the best team remaining in college basketball? Is that still Houston? How are we feeling about the Duke Blue Devils at this point?
Yeah, I was going to say I think there was probably some doubt that crept into my mind with the ACC and how truly terrible it is, the way Louisville and Clemson both lost. Mm-hmm. Duke, I think, is just so far and above that.
Yeah.
And you saw that this regular season. Like they weren't like in games with the other teams in the ACC. You know, they were beating Wake Forest by 50. And pretty much every game down the stretch was a 30-point blowout. They did lose to Clemson on the road, but I mean it happens. It's very difficult to go undefeated in college basketball. So they're good. I mean, Duke's just flat out unbelievable. I think they're the odds-on favorite. I think they're plus 200 to win it all as of right now, and they should be because I don't see a world where they lose at this moment. I think they've got some close games coming up, but I don't think they're going to lose. As far as the rest of the number ones, I think Auburn I have the most doubt about, I would say. You know, I think Auburn's very, very good, but is Auburn going to be able to hang with Duke or Houston in a championship game? I don't think so. I think that Florida's good. I think Florida could absolutely compete with them, and maybe they get to the championship game and they upset either Houston or Duke. I don't know. Actually, I don't even know who's the top 2 1 seeds. It's
Auburn, Duke, Houston,
yeah,
Florida.
That's wild to me. But yeah, either way, I do think that Duke is the best team, and it's not remotely close.
If I had to pick one team left in the tournament to get me a basket, I'm picking Florida. If I had to pick one team left in the tournament to get a stop, I'm picking Houston. I would take both those teams over Duke in terms of trying to win this championship. I think the thing that hurts Florida the most in terms of both odds, you talked about Duke being the gambling favorite. Florida is a close second. It's 230 and 300 right now, and I really think that difference is just Florida playing Auburn before they get to the championship.
Yeah.
That Final Four matchup is so brutal for Florida, and this is why I was pointing out before the tournament, how do you put both SEC teams on the same side of the bracket? You tell us that the SEC is distantly the best conference by putting 14 teams in. They've now shown it so far with 7 teams in the Sweet 16. You took the 2 teams that are the 1 seeds and faced them off against each other in a chalk Final Four. How do you not split those teams up so you can have Auburn and Florida, the top 2 teams in the SEC, the regular season champ and the tournament champ, coming in on opposite sides? That never made any sense to me, and as this bracket keeps playing out in a chalk way, I think it's going to come back to really hurt this Final Four. I think you're going to see a team that's played another team 3 times already as opposed to a new matchup in the Final Four. I really don't like that, but my favorite team right now hasn't changed from the start of the tournament. It's still Houston. I love what they did to Gonzaga. I know they got up 14 and let Gonzaga back in the game, but even at the end, every time it went from 12 to 8, it would get back to 12. And then Gonzaga cut it to 1, and they got a turnover right at the end of the game. Gonzaga didn't even get a shot up. So I love what I've seen from Houston so far. Florida, a bump in the road, but UConn hadn't lost in, 13 or 14 tournament games. So I think I'm just going to kind of put a Dan Hurley asterisk on that one. We'll see how they handle Maryland coming up this weekend. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of 1s and 2s in the Elite Eight. And I think we're going to get a lot of really, really good games.
Fair, and those higher seeds have looked really, really good, as you mentioned, Jake.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't agree that Duke is the best team left in the tournament, I guess
they're right there. They're right there.
They've been, and to rephrase it, they've been the most impressive, I think. If you want to phrase it that way, are they the best team left? We'll find out. But as far as, I mean, look, it was a 1-16 matchup, but that score, that reminds me of 15, 20 years ago when a 1-16 would play. That's what, 93-49 the final. I mean, that's how it used to be. Obviously, we've seen the talent gap kind of tighten over the last, decade plus. Maybe it's starting to widen back up, which we'll get to in a moment. But to dominate Mount St. Mary's the way they did, as they should, by the way, 93-49 the final there. And then I'm watching them with Baylor yesterday. Baylor would, start to cut it to within 10, maybe single digits, start to make a run. The talent gap, just the team gap between Duke and Baylor was just so unbelievable. Now, the officiating, I know, obviously, that's something you guys mentioned earlier, but Duke just absolutely manhandled Baylor yesterday, 89-69 in the final, and we'll see what happens when they take on Arizona. But their path to the Final Four, probably as easy as anyone else is out there. I know, obviously, Alabama, the 2 seed, is who they're most likely going to run into, Jake. But, you look at the path to get there, I think Alabama easily, and that's how it's set up, would be the best team that they face the entire stretch to get to the Final Four, and obviously Duke could still be the heavy favorite in that one.
I do think if you ask Duke, you tell them, you're going to be a 1 seed. Who's the 4 seed you'd like to play least in the Sweet 16? I think every single person on that Duke team is saying Arizona. I don't think Arizona's the best 4 seed. I do think Caleb Love has a little bit of real estate down in Cameron Indoor in Durham, North Carolina. So I'm worried about that game for Duke. It would be great, obviously, for me as an Alabama fan to see them fall before we have to face off. But I think if anyone can do it, it's Caleb Love. And we've seen it before. We saw a North Carolina team that was much, much less talented than that Paolo Banchero Duke team take them to the wire and end up winning the game in the Final Four and Coach K's last year. So we've seen Caleb Love shoot his team into games and over the top before. I think he can do it in this one. Will he? I don't know. Probably not. The betting line is Duke is a 9.5-point favorite, closest we have to a double-digit spread in Sweet 16, obviously telling you that they think Duke's going to take care of business. But if any team can get hot and has the pace to do it, I think it might be Arizona. So I'm hoping that game is a little bit closer than that number entails. Maybe Arizona can pull it off or at least have a lead late so Duke can get tested before they get to the Elite Eight. But I don't think anyone would be too shocked if Duke cruises past Arizona and cruises past Alabama, and then we see Duke Houston in the Final Four, and the first time we really see them tested in March. Because they certainly weren't tested in the ACC tournament.
That's true.
They didn't have Cooper Flagg, and they won the championship by 10.
Is this NCAA tournament an outlier in your opinion, and just with how chalk the first 2 rounds have been? Do you think that this is an outlier type tournament? I hear a lot of people bringing up NIL, although it's been around for a few years now. That's why I'm hesitant to label it as, okay, this is how it's going to be moving forward. How are we feeling about what we're seeing this? Is this what we're going to see moving forward? Are we going to see just more chalk tournaments moving forward just for the changes in college athletics, or is this just an outlier season? Well, same thing with the college football playoff. Indiana and some other schools that made it that we did not anticipate making it. Is that going to be common moving forward in college football, or was that an outlier of an inaugural 12-team college football playoff? We're going to find out. But back to basketball, is this an outlier tournament? Are we going to see more chalk tournaments moving forward, in your opinion?
Yeah, we are. I think NIL, you're starting to see the effects of it. And maybe it's always been there. Like, everybody was getting paid no matter what. So whether or not you want to believe that was the case, it's always the case. Everybody's been getting paid in college athletics for decades. Saying that, it is more apparent now that it's an audition for these mid-majors when they play in this tournament, that they are auditioning for everybody else. If you have a 35-point performance and a first-round exit, right, or maybe a first-round upset, and you lose in the second round by 30, that kid's going somewhere. He's going to a school that's a bigger name. He's going to get paid $250,000, and he's going to go. So that's what it is now. Like, there's not going to be any more like 4-year players that have a good run in March. It's just not going to happen. So you are going to start to see that. You are going to start to see more chalk in college basketball. College football, it's always been that way because the money discrepancy has always been an issue, or maybe not even an issue. It's just how it's always been.
Less chance in college basketball.
In college football, correct. College basketball, I just think going forward, like if you want to see upsets in the first round, you're going to start seeing less and less. You're still going to have them. It's impossible to not have them when you have this many teams playing in a tournament. But yeah, I do think that these mid-major schools, and I think Will Wade and McNeese are the perfect example. He coaches McNeese just so he can coach somewhere else, right? That's his classic stepping stone. And then you have all the kids on his team. He's like, all right, you guys, I want you to play really good. Not for McNeese. I just want you to play good so you can all get deals elsewhere out there. And that's what it's really become. So, I think you're going to start to see more chalk, but that's the way the sports landscape was going in college athletics, and you just have to sit here and watch it.
I actually am going the other way. I do think you'll see more chalk in the later rounds of the tournament. I think you'll see more upsets, or at least the normal amount of upsets. I think this is an outlier in terms of the first couple days, because I think exactly what Rick Pitino said earlier this year is going to lend itself to that, where he said he's not going to recruit high school players. And I think that's going to be something that kind of spreads across college basketball, at least these dominant programs. They're going to power through the transfer portal, which obviously, as you said, is going to deter players from staying 3-4 years at mid-major schools. You're not going to be able to build anything, really, which does stink, but it also increases the level of talent going to those schools for a 1 or 2 year span.
Sure.
So I think you might have that one guy, that tournament hero on these smaller schools as a freshman who will inevitably transfer up to a bigger power school, a contender for big money. But if they're able to score, 35 points, like you just said, in that first round game, maybe there's more of those microwave scorers sprinkled throughout the mid-majors. They can get that first round upset before inevitably falling later in the tournament, not going on a Final Four run or anything along those lines. But in the first couple rounds, if the best high school players aren't going to the best schools anymore, maybe maybe you have that, because we know most of these upsets, at least for, as soon as you get down the line to the 12, 13, especially 14, 15, 16, it's because they have one player that takes over the game.
Yeah.
Most importantly, you think about Oakland last year, you think about Jack Golke taking over that game with 50,000 threes or whatever it was to push them over Kentucky. Maybe more of those individual superstar players are going to have those, 1 year or so at those small schools and can get, a March Madness memory that makes them legends there before they transfer on.
Yeah. I just think that what I've seen so far this tournament, and maybe it is an outlier, I'm just frustrated, but yeah, it just seems to me like it's all about the money, and we'll see how that impacts the sport.
So college basketball took not a weird swing, but obviously like when the one and done era started, what ended up happening is you got a lot of teams who people thought the one and done era was going to kill college basketball and kill mid majors. Everyone's been waving the white flag on mid majors forever. That's it. They're done. There's no chance, right? I think back to the one and done era when people said, well, that's it. Mid majors, they don't stand a chance. There's no chance you're going to get mid majors knocking off teams with all these NBA one and done players when the one and done era started taking over. And what ended up happening is you got super talented, top heavy teams in college basketball, but they were all 18, 19-year-old inexperienced players. And you started seeing upsets go through the roof during that stretch because what you ended up getting is not so talented mid-major programs, but they were better teams. You had more talented rosters, more talented programs like your Kentuckys and your Dukes and others. But then you'd run into the Mercers of the world. Then you'd run into these mid-major programs of the world where, hey, they're not as talented as Duke or North Carolina or Kentucky, but they're better basketball teams. They're being played with, 20, 21, 22-year-old players who have been in the same program, the same system for 2-3 years, and you have that chemistry and you have that experience, and that took over in big games in March in the big moment when the lights get bright. Hey, you might have this no-name player who's not as talented as this player over here at Kentucky, but because this guy has played 3 or 4 years in college basketball, has played in big conference tournament games, the light's not as bright for him as what it might be for an 18-year-old kid who a year ago was in study hall in high school and is now playing in the NCAA tournament. You started to see that gap close, get more upsets. Jake, I don't know how that's going to impact this era of college basketball, because I'm glad you brought that up about Rick Pitino bringing up the fact that they're not recruiting high school basketball players anymore. That's across the board. I just worked the state tournament at the UD Arena over the weekend for the boys tournament. And I remember going as a kid, there'd be D1 coaches galore from the college ranks all over the Schottenstein Center, but over in Columbus. Even last year, there was a ton of D1 coaches, including Jake Diebler and John Diebler was an assistant with Thad Matta over at Butler. Wes Miller. I saw them all at the arena last year. No, none. There were no coaches there this past week. And there were no coaches this past week. I remember the D1 game, Olentangy Orange, going up against Reynoldsburg. The D1 game, there's always some high major player that's going to be going to a high major program. And all the top players in the D1 ranks and the D2, D3, they're all going to the MAC. They're all going to the Horizon League. They're all going to these mid-major, programs. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what it has done is, it's either to Jake's point, now the MACs and the MAC mid-major programs and others, they're going to get an influx of talent that normally they'd be going to high majors, but because high majors aren't looking at them, that talent's either going to elevate those mid-majors or the inexperience is going to kill those mid-majors. I don't know how it's going to transpire. I'm not going to buy into this year being the new moving forward. I want to say it's an outlier. I need to see it. But if we see it next year where there's no upsets and there's no close games, I will start to buy into the fact that, yes, NIL and the transfer portal is starting to kill college basketball from the mid-major standpoint. But if we return to the double-digit seeds making runs in next year's tournament, I just think this is an outlier season. It's a wait and see for me. I can't say it's an outlier, but I also can't say that this is the new college basketball moving forward either. It's a wait and see for me. We'll see what changes, how this impacts the tournament moving forward. I do know, though, I don't want more teams in the tournament. Leave the tournament format alone. I think it's perfect the way it is. Even with the bad tournament that we just referenced, ratings are still high even over last year. People are tuning in. The tournament's not broken. Don't mess with it. Leave it alone. But we know they won't. That's how.
That's going to change immediately. I don't know when. Yeah. I don't know when that's going to be finalized.
Next year.
Yeah. I mean the tournaments. I mean, just like everything about college basketball is changing. Not to bring up the Sean Miller thing, but Sean Miller's going to a place where he thinks has better NIL collectives. I think that was one of his big sticking points with Xavier. It was like, we need everybody else to do your part. Contribute to Xavier so we can compete, contribute. And now he's going to a place that seemingly has a very large NIL pool to pull. I don't know how much. It seems like all of it would go to the Texas football program over the Texas basketball program, but it still might be more, obviously, than what Xavier has to work with. It's just all changing. It's the landscape of college basketball is changing.
While we're on Sean Miller, as we wrap up the college basketball side of this, obviously you referenced it in headlines. You just touched on it there. I put this out on X a little bit ago. I thought it was interesting that the Cincinnati Enquirer put out a piece on this about, Sean Miller leaving. I don't know, guys. I didn't find that to be breaking news. I didn't find that to be surprising. If Sean Miller returns to Xavier, I'm not surprised by that either. Xavier's a hell of a basketball program. Like that's a job that if you're an up and coming coach or an established coach that just needs to get their foot back in the water to reestablish themselves, Xavier's a perfect job for that. I don't think anyone looks down at the Xavier job. I don't think Sean Miller looked down on it either. I just think that, well, just like any of us in life, if there is a situation out there that is going to offer you way better resources and way more money and a way better lifestyle, you're going to pick that. Questioning Sean Miller's loyalty in this situation is just odd to me. The Cincinnati Enquirer put out, Xavier gave Sean Miller a second chance. He reminded everyone that loyalty means nothing in college sports with his departure to Texas. I don't think you understand how sports works, sir. I don't think you understand how college athletics works. I don't understand how Sean Miller is the bad guy here. Sean Miller is viewed as the bad guy in a lot of college basketball circles. But what you can't do is take him off the bad guy list when he takes over your program and then say, see, he's selfish because he's leaving. There's an identity crisis with certain programs, and Jake, you alluded to it earlier, in the state especially. I think the second that you learn that your program could be that coach builder, if you have, like, for instance, VCU lost another coach. They keep having coaches come in 1-2 years, have success, and they get another job. It must suck to be a VCU fan, right? Nope. Because that's where the best up-and-coming coaches want to go. They have some of the best NIL collectives and resources, and they just keep winning no matter who the head coach is. I'm, living here in Dayton. Dayton Flyer fans get so pissed because they got tired of the Archies of the world and looking at the UD program as a stepping stone. And I said, but that's what you are. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if you embrace that identity, you're going to be a very good program instead of settling for a guy for 8 years that is taking you to one tournament in 8 years and saying, well, that's fine because he's a Dayton guy. He loves it here and he's a good person. That's fine. You celebrate the good person and the loyalty of a guy that underachieves for 8 straight years. I'd rather have a coach that might only use us for 2 or 3 years, but at least we're going to win for those 2 or 3 years. I have no problem with what Sean Miller did. I'm surprised at the amount of pushback that he is getting.
Well, this is a different scenario than a coach coming in, being good, and then leaving. This is a vastly different scenario, being that Sean Miller had already coached here. Xavier was the school to give him another chance in college basketball. He came back to the program, promised, we're going to try to get to a Final Four. We're going to do everything. I'm not leaving here until the job is done. And then he left here before the job was done. That's the difference. This is a drastically different argument than if Wes Miller would have come into Cincinnati, fixed our program, and went to North Carolina in 3 years. We obviously know that's not the case. He's a terrible head coach, respectfully. So now you go over to Xavier, and it's like, all right, we're really excited for Sean Miller. He did very good taking Travis Steele's group of guys to a Sweet 16. Next year, disappointment. This year, you can say whether or not it was a successful season. You can have that argument. Making the tournament for me is a success for a school cheering for a school that hasn't made the tournament in almost a decade. I think that Sean didn't live up to what he promised, and I think this quick exit. It's a quick exit. 3 years is not a lot.
What's he supposed to wait on?
But
what does he owe Xavier?
Well, I think he owes Xavier the fact
nothing. He owes Xavier nothing.
But they gave him the shot, right? I think
and now Texas gave him a better shot.
Well, but
what does Xavier think they are? They're a low-level Big East team. That's a stepping stone to real jobs that can compete.
I have no room to talk about any program in Cincinnati with the way my program is. It's just the fact of the matter. So what I'll say is this situation personally, it would be like if Mick Cronin came back to UC. Actually, it wouldn't even be like that because Mick Cronin hasn't gotten in any trouble. I don't even know what the right thing is, because
Huggins. Huggins came back.
He didn't get in any trouble. He didn't
got
get any trouble.
completely exonerated from all
He didn't
that.
get in any trouble. There was certainly a stain, though, right? I mean, it left a stain.
Do you think if Xavier didn't hire Sean Miller, he wouldn't be coaching college
I think he'd
basketball?
be coaching college basketball, but the fact of the matter is Xavier did offer him and brought him back, and I do think that does count for something.
My main takeaway from all this is I think it's funny that Xavier fans are like, I can't believe the coach lied. I can't believe the big name coach came and said he wants to stay in Cincinnati forever and stay at Xavier forever. How could he ever lie? He told us he wasn't leaving.
I just think
What are we doing?
The way that it's all played out, where nobody's like really known what's going on, and none of the reporters, and I don't know if he's talked to Xavier about leaving. Like, the fact we don't know anything, and maybe he didn't call anybody, that to me is still strange. And basically, and again, I said it in the chat. If you go back and watch the and this could be absolutely nothing, but if you go back and watch when Xavier clinches the tournament, and you watch that video of them celebrating in his house, if you look when the name is called and you look at Sean Miller, everybody else is cheering. He's just sitting there straight faced until I don't
play Texas.
Until I don't know which which assistant coach bumped into him and started to get him to cheer. But it looked like he was just like out of it a little bit. I'm not gonna speculate, but that was me speculating.
Fair enough. Yeah, and Ellie, I understand your take, because it's like, okay, they gave him a chance, but like, to act like Xavier was going to be the only program that would offer Sean Miller a job, I disagree with that. To be honest, in fact, I'm surprised Sean didn't take the Ohio State job last year, because he was one of the heavy favored candidates to potentially land that one. And I know a lot of Buckeye fans who would have loved for that to happen as well. When he came back, there's not one part of me that ever believed that was going to be a long-term partnership moving forward. I mean, he had so much success at Arizona before everything came caving down on him with the investigation and everything. He tasted that. He was not going to just go back to Xavier and never once try to aspire to get back to that. And to Xavier, and this is a problem for Xavier too, because you had Sean Miller for 3 years, a guy that has proven that he could take a high major program like, obviously, Arizona to the promised land. And you had him in your building for 3 years, and you didn't. What did you do? And maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but what did you do to increase your NIL collectives? What did you do to better the resources to keep him there? I don't know if Xavier acted with the urgency to keep a coach like Sean Miller in-house, and I think that's why Texas comes in and swoops him. When coaches say those things, that's all coach speak to me. I never take a coach at his word. I don't, and by the way, what are they supposed to say? Well, guys, thanks for having me back. Thought I'd come hang out for a few years, and let's go have some fun and see where this takes us. And, who knows? Maybe we might win a tournament game or two. They're damned if they do. They're damned if they don't. I just wasn't surprised by this. I actually think it's a hell of a job for Sean. And if we saw what he did at Arizona, the resources at Texas, if you get a guy that knows how to coach, and Sean does, I think he's going to do some good things at Texas. I think it's a hell of a hire. I think it's a hell of a decision for him. And I think Xavier is going to be fine. It's a hell of a job. There's going to be a lot of coaches that want that job. And it sounds like Chris Mack is one of the big rumored ones to potentially.
Chris Mack or Travis Steele? Who you got?
Chris Mack, odds-on favorite. Minus 8,000.
That's the only two options, right?
Yeah.
And then what? You just hope that by the time you
Bill Murray's son. I'll take the Murray.
That'd be fun.
I'll take the Murray in there as well.
That'd be fun. Maybe if you hire Chris Mack from Charleston, by the time you fire him again, Travis Steele would have made a tournament in Miami. You could hire Steele and then fire Steele because Miller will be out at Texas by then. Bring him back in 8 years.
This cycle continues forever.
Why stop? Ain't broke, don't fix it.
You look at Miami of Ohio and Steele and their coach right now too. Like, they're bringing a lot of those pieces back. They have one of their top players in the country that's coming back to Miami of Ohio next year too. Like, that's what's happening. That's what happened with McNeese. I mean, one of the NC State, they got obviously Will Wade to come, but Will Wade, he's going to poach all the best players he has at McNeese to bring with him over there, and that's a common thing. If I'm Xavier, I'm looking at Coach Gross over at Akron. I'm looking at Akron. Akron just announced that they're bringing back their entire experienced roster that dominated the MAC this year. I would look at a coach like that. I would look at Travis Steele, as you mentioned, but obviously Chris Mack's going to be the favorite to potentially land it. But that's another coach coming back again. So we'll see. Going back to the well each and every time. I just didn't have a problem with Sean Miller doing that. That's just college basketball. That's just how it works today, unfortunately.
If you're not – right. Colin Will put it in our chat a little bit ago when we started this topic. If you're not a top 10 to 20 job, you are a stepping stone in college basketball.
Yeah.
Period. There's 10, 15, maybe 20 jobs that you can be confident about your coach not leaving. Otherwise, see ya. You're never going to have a great coach for very long, because as soon as they have success, one of those schools is going to pay them enough money and give them enough NIL resources to leave. So I think that's the biggest change of the new era of college basketball, is you hear coaches leave, and it's not about scholarships or being able to get better players. It's all about, how much money do I have to work with? What's the dollar signs that I can put into this roster year in and year out? I mean, that's what we're hearing about Kevin Willard at Maryland right now, is everywhere that he's interviewing, he's just comparing the amount of money that they're going to give him to put into the roster, which is obviously not something that came into play just a couple years ago. I mean, this is something that we're going to see a lot more. Coach turnover goes hand in hand with player turnover, and we're just going to see coaches at schools, much like we said when we were talking about the mid-majors in the tournament, we're going to see coaches at these smaller schools that aren't these big names go have a little bit of success and jump to a bigger school with more money. That's just going to be, really how it is.
Speaking of teams in Ohio who have a lot of money, that spend a lot of money, that better their rosters, let's talk about the Cincinnati Reds. Unfortunately, though, even if the roster was healthy, we were questioning just how strong this roster is for Terry Francona heading into the 2025 season. Now that we are just days away from opening day, well, it was kind of, our worst nightmare about just hoping that we didn't see names start to pile up on the IL list. Well, unfortunately, it's up to four key contributors that we all were really looking forward to making an impact for the Reds in 2025 are starting the season on the IL. How concerned should you be about the names on that list? How much does that do, as far as impacting your optimism for the start of the season? We'll get to all of that when we come back. Let's talk some Reds. We're off the bench when we return. God, Jacob and Elliot, all they want to talk is basketball. My goodness. We welcome you back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Yes, we spent a lot of time on basketball coming out of the opening round of the NCAA tournament. A lot of takeaways there. Obviously, one of the bigger news locally, college basketball, Sean Miller exits after 3 years in his return to Xavier to take the Texas job, the same team that they just knocked out in Dayton at the first four just last week. But we spent some time on that. Obviously, that'll be clipped and shared on Chatterbox Sports YouTube page later on, so go and check that out if you missed it. But we turn our attention towards the Cincinnati Reds. I tell you, it's what spring training drives me nuts, because it starts and we're talking Reds and we're talking about our optimism. We're talking about all of our concerns. We're doing our win-loss predictions. We're doing all that. And then a week into spring training, we're like, well, damn, there's still 3 weeks until opening day. And then it's just a lull, right? And now it's here. Opening day is here, just days away. We finally get baseball this week, real baseball, not spring training, not exhibition, not whatever, the real thing. But the real thing now, the optimism and the excitement about the real thing with opening day coming up on Thursday seems to be taking a little bit of a hit from an optimism standpoint, because what we all as fans hate with any team that we follow is talking about injuries. And rather than at the beginning of spring where we're talking about a couple nagging injuries and a couple bruises here and there, now the IL stints are starting to pile up for the Cincinnati Reds. As of this moment, we're talking about guys like Andrew Abbott, Tyler Stevenson, Spencer Steer, and the newest addition, Alexis Diaz, as we sit here right now. 4 names on the IL for the Reds, just days away from opening day. How are we feeling? This team, the margin for error was slim to begin with, but when you start out with 4 key contributors like that there was expectations for and helping push this team to accomplish their goals, I don't want to overreact as it's only March right now, but at the same time, we know how the Reds have shot themselves in the foot in the month of April so many times throughout recent history. I hate for any bad mojo to be surrounding this team heading into opening day, heading into the first month of the season. 4 guys on the IL, big names at that. How we feeling about heading into opening day with those 4 names on the IL?
Not great. Not great, Justin. We said one thing all spring training. It was please, please, please get to opening day with the lineup that we have on paper. We got so close, man. We got so close. It's week of now, and we are going to go in with about half the lineup hurt. So that was a fun little bit of hope while we had it this offseason. Yeah, I mean, this absolutely stinks. I think Tyler Stevenson, though he is the best player on that list, is the one I'm probably least concerned about losing just because the level of play. I know offensively it's a bigger drop-off, but defensively Jose Trevino's a great backup there. Obviously the biggest one for me, Spencer Steer. We've talked about this outfield healthy being a problem for the Reds all season. That's with Spencer Steer probably being the best bat out there. And without him to start this year, and who knows how long, that is certainly a tough pill to swallow. I'm having flashbacks like I know a lot of other Reds fans are. Matt McClain injury pops up right near the middle of spring training, and we're waiting opening day. Okay, well, he'll reevaluate in a couple months. Maybe he comes back, and he just never does. He has the surgery that ends his year. Certainly hoping that doesn't take place with Spencer Steer, but when you see something like this, he never really got into the swing of spring training. This is a lingering shoulder injury that lasted since last offseason. If surgery does come onto the table, that would be such a big blow for this Reds team. That's certainly the one that worries me the most. We've talked a lot about the pitching depth. I think Andrew Abbott being hurt, though we would like to have Andrew Abbott out there. Certainly we have a little bit of wiggle room in that realm. Alexis Diaz, I don't even know if we know how hurt he is versus just not making the team. So I think those are all certainly not what you want to see, but it could be worse. As long as 44-9 are out there on opening day, I'm going to have a smile on my face.
Yeah, Alexis Diaz, I think, was a name that Jacob and I said if he plays like the guy he was 2 years ago, the Reds' bullpen's going to be dynamite.
Yeah.
I think the Reds saw what he had to offer this spring, and they said no thanks. They said no thanks. And I know spring training stats don't matter and all that good stuff. He had a 13 ERA. I mean, I know in limited games, but he wasn't good. I mean, he couldn't get out the Chicago White Sox like single A guys. Like he's terrible. I mean, he was terrible, and you weren't going to have confidence in him this season. That IL stint doesn't seem to me like he's an injured, and we're going to put him on the injured list. That seems like he's terrible, and I don't want to insult him by saying we're going to start our closer of the past 2 years down in AAA because that's a colossal joke. So very worried about that. Who's going to be our ninth inning guy?
Well, you are. Ian Jabot.
Huh?
You're going to be our ninth inning guy.
Yeah.
He's back.
Yeah, Ian Jabot blowing games in the ninth is going to be a tough watch. It's going to be a
You're
tough sell.
You're going to sing so many songs this year.
That's going to be a tough sell for me. I hope that there's a better option than that.
It sounds like it's between him and Ashcraft.
Yeah, I would rather have Ashcraft a million times over. So, no disrespect to my sweet prince Ian Jabot. I would like somebody in there who could pitch. Outside of that, you have Spencer Steer, who we knew this was going to be. I mean, I knew from the very second they announced it that he's been dealing with this injury since, last year, that he wasn't going to play. This is brutal. I mean, you can say whatever you want about not Spencer Steer being bad at defense. The guy produces runs offensively. He's a good offensive player. Not having him for a team that sucks at offense, going to be a tough loss this year. It's going to be brutal. I don't know how long he's going to be out, but that injury seems like something that's not going to be a quick, easy to come back from injury. That's going to be a lingering thing that happens the whole year, and I'd imagine multiple IL stints. Tyler Stevenson, obliques aren't exactly easy to come back from either, especially when you're a catcher, the starting catcher of the Cincinnati Reds. I'm very, very concerned about that because, again, what I'm losing offensively there is, to be quite honest, not worth the defense that Trevino brings me. So the Reds are now losing 2 key offensive pieces on a team that didn't add offensively pretty much at all. If you want to say Austin Hayes is the world's best outfielder offensively, then I wish you all the luck in the world cheering for the Cincinnati Reds this year.
You're forgetting
Gavin Lux is great. Gavin Lux doesn't hit home runs. Gavin Lux is Jonathan India but can play defense in the infield. That's what that comparison is. So listen, if you want to say Elliot, are you excited? You guys know how I am. You guys know how I operate. You know the stats I bring up when talking about the Reds and their lack of success during my lifetime. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that I think the Reds can make a deep playoff run this year. And I don't think really anybody with realistic expectations believe that. It's just looking at it right now, I'm increasingly getting more and more frustrated with the Cincinnati Reds. I don't know how it is that every spring we lose key contributors. I don't know what it is in the water. I don't know what it is in Goodyear Ballpark. There's something that happens where we just lose our guys and we don't get them back healthy at all during the course of an 162-game regular season. I'm very excited that baseball's here. I love baseball. It's my favorite sport. It's always going to be my favorite sport. I can't wait to get back to the ballpark.
How long do you think
I get
you're
very
gonna love
excited.
baseball?
I probably a couple months, a month. I'm just tempering my expectations, and I hope everybody else in Cincinnati tempers their expectations too. This is a 78-win baseball team if we're lucky, and I don't mean to be this. There's a Positive Reds podcast that we've got here at Chatterbox Sports, Chatterbox Reds. Go check it out. You guys know I'm negative. You look at the key injuries here, and you look at the lack of fixes, the lack of fixing that the Reds front office did for the offense, an offense that wasn't good last year. You see what's been done, and you look at it, and you're like, I don't know if this team's going to be able to compete at a high level. I love Hunter Green, I love Ellie De La Cruz, I love Matt McClain. If all three of those guys play healthy and they're there the whole year, I'm going to have probably a decent season. But if they're not, boy, are we in trouble. We are in big, big trouble if we lose one more name because they don't have the depth anymore.
You're in a bad spot when you're sitting here in February and March saying, well, if everyone stays healthy for 162, maybe we could sneak into the playoffs. Yeah. Then you have a couple injuries, and even some of those injuries coming in positions where you really can't afford to lose anybody. It's talking about Steer in the outfield, and you didn't give yourself a chance. You really didn't give yourself any wiggle room offensively is what it feels like. Because when you're missing these guys, I mean, you just talked about it there. How much are we losing with Tyler Stevenson in that slot? And not only just not having him at catcher, not being able to DH him when Jose Trevino is in at catcher. Yeah. You're losing so much with a lot of these injuries, and I think it comes back to maybe I was way too optimistic thinking about this offseason, saying, if we were healthy, we'll be okay. The front office didn't do enough. They didn't do enough to give us a chance, to give us any kind of wiggle room to get through these injuries. Hopefully, I'm wrong again now, and I'm overcorrecting, and we get through the first month or so where all these things are nagging us and keeping guys out of the lineup, guys that we need out of the lineup. Hopefully, we can stay afloat and get through that time period and get everyone back. And as we said for the last couple months, stay healthy and give ourselves a chance to compete because we don't have depth to root for. We don't have depth to feel confident in when it comes to offense. And I think this is getting as close to a worst-case scenario as possible. But you can't officially call anything with the Reds a worst-case scenario as long as the three guys Elliott just named are playing baseball. If Hunter Green's healthy, Matt McClain's healthy, and Ellie De La Cruz are healthy, the Reds are going to be, at the very least, fun enough to watch this year. And I think that does mean something.
Our outfield is a colossal disaster. A colossal disaster. Jake Fraley in spring training, yada, yada, yada. He's hitting 167. He has 7 hits this spring, 271 OBP. That's like our best outfielder. I mean, TJ Friedel is a name that we're going to have to keep saying is the captain of the ship, but I thought Jake Fraley was going to have a fighting chance. Friedel, for what it's worth, he's playing better, 271, 352, not a lot of extra base hits at all, 313 slug. I mean, it's going to be a sight to see for our outfield this year. Austin Hayes, Stuart Fairchild, Blake Dunn or Hurtubise, whoever makes the final roster spot. Our outfield truly couldn't be worse at this very second without Spencer Steer. It's maybe the worst in Major League Baseball. I'd have to go check out the Chicago White Sox roster.
We're trying to get our best option for the outfield is one of their outfielders.
So
that's not a great
correct.
place.
And this is why when I said that, and we were talking about it earlier on, I love the Nick Martinez move. I absolutely love bringing back Nick Martinez. I think the versatility, I think the way he played last year, I think he earned $20 million. He didn't earn $20 million if it means that we're just not going to address anything else. Yeah. That's my issue. And the Reds did not address this outfield. They did not. You can sit here and say that Gavin Luck's platooning in the outfield at a position that he's never played before, and maybe Austin Hayes plays like the guy he was 2.5 years ago. That's fine. If you want to make that argument, you can make that argument. Even with those two guys, that outfield's still not major league caliber. It's just not. And I don't know what's going to happen this year offensively. I'm hoping that we're going to have Matt McClain, CES, Ellie De La Cruz, and Jameer all pick it up in the infield because they legitimately have to. There's no other option than those guys have to carry this lineup. And I'm starting to get concerned that they're not going to be able to. Ellie De La Cruz, for what it was worth, I talked about the negative spring training stats. Ellie De La Cruz quite literally couldn't have played better this spring. 409, 519 OBP. He had 10 walks this spring. 773 slug, a 1.291 OPS. He was absolutely incredible. If you had any doubts at all, which I imagine not many people do, those are all gone. I mean, Ellie De La Cruz is a superstar, generational. He's going to be one of the lifebloods of this team right now. Where if we don't have him, we don't have life.
Yeah,
that's what it's going to be. So I hope Ellie De La Cruz and Matt McClain can be healthy. Matt McClain, for what it's worth, this spring he did okay. Not a lot of walks, but again, numbers are irrelevant. I'm just reading him to read them. 255 he hit this spring, a 281 OBP, 418 slug, 700 OPS. Not the world's best spring, but he's getting accustomed to it again, so that's good to see. CES, a guy that I have my doubts about, which I can't really afford to have doubts about this season. 280, 340, 560, and a 900 OPS.
Yeah, what happens to this team if you're right about CES?
We're real bad. We're real bad.
Like 55 wins?
Like I don't know about 55 because I think there's enough in the pitching rotation there. But
let's not forget a couple years ago we lost a no-hitter. So
that's true.
It can be done. Hunter Green threw a no-hitter in Pittsburgh and lost.
I'm just saying that my expectations are dropping by the day.
Yeah, me too, which is the worst possible place to be as a fan of a team that you really know can't win it leading up to opening day. This should be the most exciting week. This should be the most exciting week of the season. Hopefully, we can eke out 12 straight wins at some point and have a lot of fun in the month of June. But right now, these 3, 4, 5 days where you get to just talk about your team, look at spring training stats. If we were healthy, I wouldn't look at really any numbers but Ellie's because he's been so damn good in spring training. Yep. I'd be able to get excited. But now, with all these injuries and you don't know what kind of roster you're even going to be running out there on opening day, obviously last spring training game yesterday really looked good, 13-2 win over the Guardians. But I am as low on the Reds in 2025 right now as I've been all offseason, which is just an unbelievable place to be with opening day 3 days away.
All right, let's pick up with this when we come back. Obviously, what's the most devastating IL news of all the players that we just talked about? Which one hurts the Reds the most, and where are there still opportunities for this team to get off to a hot start? Because it's the first day of the week heading into opening day. We're going to put a positive spin on this, or try, but we'll do all of that when we come back. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Tyler Stevenson, Spencer Steer, Andrew Abbott, Alexis Diaz, the 4 Cincinnati Reds that make up the Reds IL stint list, at least as we sit here right now, knock on wood, hoping that there is no more.
Yeah, why not?
This is why I don't want that game.
Pour it on.
I wouldn't be shocked.
I don't want the game in Dayton tomorrow. I don't. I think it was kind of silly. I don't know why they added it. I mean, for Reds fans in Dayton, Reds fans in general, it's great. I think this is silly. You get out of spring training. You have a lot of players already, key contributors on the IL. I don't want this game to happen in Dayton tomorrow. I don't want to see the Reds. I don't need a fluff. We just saw an entire month of spring training. Why do we need another fluff game? I don't care about that. The only game that I care about is coming up on Thursday, opening day, and I want to have as many healthy Cincinnati Reds players as possible, and I don't want anything to risk, happening tomorrow. I don't want to see Hunter Green pitch. I don't want to see I want the fans to be so disappointed with the list of no names that are thrown out there. I don't care about the Reds fans in Dayton today or tomorrow or Wednesday. I care about the Reds fans on Thursday. I'm one of them. I don't want to see Hunter Green touch a baseball tomorrow. I'll be so pissed. Terry Francona knows way more than me. I will never say that I know more than him, but I hope to goodness that he does not let Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Brady Singer. I don't want to see one starter out there tomorrow, guys. Like I can't believe we're even doing this tomorrow. This is the dumbest thing ever, especially after all the names on the IL stint. I don't care about fun. I don't care about the smiling faces on the children. I don't care about any of that stuff. Just get everyone to opening day. Lock them at Great American Ballpark. Don't let them leave. Put a bubble wrap around every single player, and let's just make sure that we at least have what's remaining of this roster healthy and intact to give them the best chance possible to win a series that is very important, especially when you got Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, and Nick Martinez on the mound for the first 3 games of the series, and then you got Brady Singer waiting on the other side coming out, and Spires after that. I'm really pissed off about this game tomorrow. I don't know why. Maybe I'm making something out of nothing, but it just seems so meaningless when it's all said and done, especially when you consider what you're risking if anyone tweaks an ankle, all of a sudden feels a little soreness in their shoulder. Oh, man, my throwing arm feels a little off. I don't want any of that stuff to happen tomorrow night, and that's what I'm worried about.
This will probably be the first 9-inning Reds game I watched since the first couple weeks of spring training, and it's just going to be holding my breath the entire time. Yeah. I mean, there's zero enjoyment out of this game. No, I'm not going to go, but I was thinking about it, and I think it's more for exactly the reasons Kinner's saying. I'm not going to enjoy it. I'd like to watch the prospects play. I think it's cool to see all them on the same field as the big league guys for sure, but every single time Ellie stepped into the box or Matt McClain gets a ground ball hit his way, I would freak out. Because the game doesn't matter. We're waiting for Thursday. We're already so worried about a lot of these injuries. I hope those guys get their, one at bat or whatever else, get to wave to some fans and go sit down. I mean, there's almost no way that they play a full 9-inning game. Certainly don't know for sure, but I would be shocked if they allowed that to happen. It'll be a little exhibition for the Dayton fans to see those guys in those uniforms, and they'll probably sit down for backups. At least I hope that's what happens, because if there's an injury in a minor league showcase game, that is going to drive me up a wall.
Yeah, I'm all good. I don't mean to be disrespectful. I don't care about spring training. I certainly don't care about this game. I'm sure it's exciting for everybody else. I'm not trying to poo-poo. Going to the ballpark's a fun experience. I think the Dayton Dragons ballpark's a cool ballpark. Have fun. Watch the Reds. Just be there. You get to feel the presence of baseball in the air. It's going to be, I'm sure, a good atmosphere. Just for me personally, spring training is just a war ground where my guys get hurt. So even if I hear a rumor of an injury that occurs because tomorrow's game is played, I would be more upset than anything. So I'm
50% chance of rain. 50% chance of rain tomorrow too.
Okay.
Good.
Let's play on a wet field. Let's play on a wet single-A field.
Rain it out. I'm all good with it. They probably would move it to the next day, wouldn't they? Though. No, there's no way they would.
You play back-to-back?
No, I'm saying if they rained it out, would you play?
Wednesday with opening day Thursday?
I would hope not.
Oh, boy.
I hope it's a rain out. No disrespect to anybody that bought tickets and is going, but I have no interest in seeing my players get hurt.
What is the you just played an entire month of spring training. I really just,
I get it. I
think it's for the fans.
Yeah, it's a fan event, and it's because nobody else has. It's like not a lot of people have the money to go out and to travel to Arizona for a week and watch them play spring training baseball. So I get it. I understand why they did it. I'm sure it's going to be a fun old time. My issue is that it being this close to the start of the regular season doesn't make much sense to me. But
yeah,
I hope they all have fun.
Oh, and just because there's a reason, it doesn't mean it's a good one for the fans. You know what the fans want? Luis Robert. You want to make the fans happy? Go get Luis Robert. Don't risk injuring what few stars you have on this cheaply put together roster just days before opening day. But either way, that's where we're at. But that's tomorrow. But nonetheless, we kick off that segment with a lot of negativity, all because of me. My apologies. I forgot about it as we're coming into the segment. I looked down and saw an email reminding me about tomorrow night at the ballpark. I'm like, oh yeah, that's dumb. I don't want that at all. I don't want any of these star players to get hurt. There's enough players on the IL list right now. I think the two biggest names on that list for the Andrew Abbott's a big name and a big contributor, and I'm bummed that he's not the fifth starter or wherever he would be in the order of this rotation. That one doesn't bother me the most, and I don't know why. It should, because you can never have enough pitching. But I think I feel the best about heading into opening day. I love this rotation, to be honest with you. Is it perfect? No, but the fact that I don't have to hold my breath until the final pitcher in the rotation, I think that shows just how well put together the rotation is at this point. Is there a lot of depth? No. Like to see, Rhett Lauder, just how healthy is he if they have to call upon him to replace someone in the rotation at some point? What's, down in the system? We could talk about all that later. But I'm fine with that. I think they can overcome the Andrew Abbott absence. Alexis Diaz, to your guys' point, with how poor he was in spring training, how confident are you that Terry Francona was going to have the confidence in him in high leverage moments to bring him in to close out a game with how poorly he's looked in spring? I don't think that's a huge loss either. I think it's a loss because of his lack of production, but the IL stint itself, I don't want him out there anyways if he's going to look the way he has throughout spring at this point. So I'm going to put those two off to the side as far as saying I don't think that those two are as devastating as what the next two names are, and that's Spencer Steer and Tyler Stevenson. Now, Spencer Steer said the other day that hitting's not a problem. He can actually hit the baseball fine. Like he could take batting practice. What he can't do is throw. He's having a very hard time throwing the baseball, and that's kind of something you need from your outfielder if you're trying to make any plays defensively, of course. So that's a concern. And Stevenson, I really hope that this is not a very long IL stint. I hope it's something that we still see him in the month of April, and we kind of forget about this opening day IL stint and put it behind us. I think Spencer Steer is the most concerning. I'll be surprised just with the way our luck goes. I don't know if we're going to see him at all in 2025, just with the way our luck goes. But which one of those two, or four if you want, is the most concerning? Which one impacts this team the absolute most? Is it the absence of Spencer Steer in an outfield that has no depth to begin with? Or is it the loss of our catcher, who honestly was probably the most underrated Red last season? And when you look at him being one of the top catchers in baseball, which of those two IL stint is more devastating to kick off the season, in your opinion?
I do think it is Spencer Steer. I know we lose with Tyler Stevenson going to Jose Trevino, but we're going from Spencer Steer to Jacob Hurtubise. This is going to be a nightmare in the outfield. I think both players are absolutely crucial to the Reds lineup. I think both of them, certainly a massive drop-off to their backups, but we were talking about how bad the outfield was going to be with Spencer Steer playing. And now without him, I just think that it is the worst possible injury, excluding the middle infield. If you took away the two guys in the middle infield, which half of that injury isn't even winning games, I don't want to watch the Reds if they're not out there. So, if you take those two guys out of it, I think Spencer Steer, though I know we aren't the biggest Spencer Steer fans on this podcast or comparatively to other people in the company or elsewhere, but I think, he means so much to this team based on what they did in the outfield this offseason. And losing him, or what they didn't do in the outfield this offseason, and losing him is as much of a nightmare as you can have.
Mine is, I'll go Tyler Stevenson because, again, no disrespect. I like Trevino. You just can't play offense. You're losing a lot when you don't have your catcher that was very, very good last year. And it's disappointing that we're not going to have him this year. At least to start the season. He's going to play. I just don't know when he's going to come back. So, I hope it's a quick injury. What he did defensively last year for our staff, our pitching staff, what he did at the plate. He was probably the most underrated player on our team. So losing Tyler Stevenson would kill me. And as of right now, that's our biggest loss in my mind. Just because I do think our outfield's terrible. Our outfield's terrible. So losing a terrible outfielder from our outfield,
I'm not a Spencer Steer guy.
I'm a Spencer Steer guy in the sense that he can hit. If Spencer Steer could play where he was supposed to be played, then I'd like Spencer Steer a whole lot more in that role. Obviously, I can't defend his play, his defense in the outfield. I can't do it, so I'm not going to. He's a bad defensive outfielder, but offensively, you lose a ton with Spencer Steer, just like you're going to lose a lot with Tyler Stevenson not playing.
Yeah, it's tough. I think the better player, obviously, is Tyler Stevenson, so obviously that's going to be easy to say that. But I know you're saying because of who's behind Tyler Stevenson is why you think that that's the more devastating loss. I think who's behind Tyler Stevenson is what makes his IL stint a little bit more of a soft landing. I love your point, though, about the offense as far as that's concerned. Obviously, no one's excited about, the 139, 4 RBI performance throughout spring at this point. I'm not going to put a lot of stock into the offensive numbers throughout spring, of course, but from a defensive standpoint, what you would not want to have happen is if the backup catcher is a big dip offensively and also is a liability defensively. The fact that Trevino can come in, an experienced catcher, plays the catcher position at a high level defensively, I think that helps soften the blow of losing Tyler Stevenson, because I do think that there's going to be other players that have to step up offensively. My problem with Tyler Stevenson, with Spencer Steer being out, is I don't think he's one of the best outfielders in Major League Baseball to begin with. And what he does bring to the table was his availability and at times what he could do with the bat in his hand. But at the same time, like, we were going to be at a loss whether Spencer Steer's in the lineup or not. We still felt a little uneasy about this to begin with. I just don't know how much more we lost with Spencer Steer being out versus Tyler Stevenson. I want to say Trevino helps make the Stevenson landing a little softer. But, man, oh, man, it's just these are not a good situations to be in if you're the Reds to have both of these guys out. Now, with both of them being out, pressure-wise, which player that is remaining is that pushing the more pressure to step up, because the thing is, it's not going to be Ellie or Matt McClain, because you know what you get with those two. Matt McClain has other pressures he's facing, like can he return to form? He's being viewed as one of the best second basemen in baseball. He hasn't even played in a complete 162-game season. So there's a lot of pressure on him to live up to those expectations. You know what you get with Ellie. He was great, obviously. You look at Christian Encarnacion Strand, you look at Candelario, you look at Gavin Lux, you look at a lot of these utility guys, TJ Friedel and others. Who is it that this all of a sudden puts more pressure on with the lack of production now that you've lost with Tyler Stevenson being out and Steer being out? Who now are we looking at saying, okay, now we're not hoping that you could produce. We need you to produce. Who is that guy for the Reds now in the absence of these two?
I think, funny enough, I think it's Austin Hayes and Gavin Lux. I think it's the outside additions, which is a terrible place to be and a terrible thing to say. But obviously, I think the bulk of that pressure falls on the superstars, or the guys that you're hoping can take that step to be consistent superstars. Ellie and McClain are going to have to pick up a lot of that offensive slack. Outside of that, if you want people to overlook the Reds, and I mean that in a positive way, kind of just put them in that group of someone who's going to compete for a wild card spot, compete for the division, and move on instead of trying to break down the roster. It's going to take these additions that we made this offseason being better than either of us expect and more to the level of more of the optimistic Reds fans. I think, if Austin Hayes and Gavin Lux can be really solid, good players for the Reds, that changes a lot in terms of the offense that we're talking about being so poor, the outfield depth being so poor. If Gavin Lux can play both of those spots, I think a lot of things are going to fall on those guys' shoulders, which is it's a tough pill to swallow sitting here 3 days before opening day.
I don't know. I don't know who the replacement offensive guys are. CES has to be good, and Jeimer Candelario have to be good. Those two names legitimately have to be good. And if they're not, you don't know what this team is. This team again loses its identity because it's not playing the way it was meant to be played. And I don't know if that's Nick Krall's fault. I don't know whose fault it is. But when I have positivity coming into the season, it's because the guys that we have, I believe, can contribute to a level where I think maybe they make a run at a division. Now, when you lose key contributors like we've lost, I don't know if that's possible. So my two names, CES and Jeimer Candelario, are the guys I'm going to be looking at with a microscope this year.
Fair enough. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410, Wing AM in Dayton. We'll talk a little Bengals on the other side. We'll wrap up our Reds conversation, and we'll put a bow on the radio side of this when we come back. We're Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers when we return.
Let's be positive.
That's right.
We're going to be positive. That's what I've garnered from the chat. They want more positivity than negativity. So
The Reds have been good our whole lives, so why wouldn't we be positive?
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to switch it up.
Okay.
We're going to finish this show, ESPN 1410 Wing AM. We're going to finish the headphones still on. We're going to finish
I didn't even realize
We're going to
until you
finish
said
the
that.
show. We're going to finish the show with nothing but positivity. I'm going to give
Okay.
you a name, and you're just going to give me something to be positive
All
about,
right.
all right? You ready?
All right.
I think this is going to be a fun game.
I'm worried I'm going to not have positive things to say about a lot of these names.
I think you're going to be excited.
Okay.
Matt McClain.
I think that he could be what everyone thinks he's going to be.
That's
which
right.
would have this team in a very, very fun position for at least the next 5 years.
Okay. CES. Christian Encarnacion Strand.
I bet on him to hit 25 home runs this year.
Okay.
That's a positive.
That's absolutely a positive. If that guy's a home run hit, if he hits 40 home runs, who knows?
If Christian Encarnacion Strand breaks the home run record, 73 home runs this year, I think that he'll be a pretty good first baseman.
That's right. That's
Positivity.
Right. That's positivity. Our center fielder, our star center fielder.
That's right.
TJ Friedel.
That's right.
Big league ball player, TJ Friedel.
That's right. He had that 4-WAR season that one time.
That's right. Blake Dunn. We don't know if he's on the roster yet.
So positive about him.
Hitting 340 in the spring.
Wow. Love that. Real speed, too, on the base pads. I think he was in the 95 percentile when he was up for about a week last year. Fun thing about him, he got hit in the head with a baseball twice in about a week's span and survived.
Okay. How about that?
Positivity.
Santiago Espinal. Probably will play more games than half of our infield.
I would imagine positivity about Santiago. He was in the group of 4 players that fans could vote on to have a bobblehead night.
Yes. If you did not vote, is that voting over now?
I don't know.
He was in the. I think it was like the Nick Martinez, Santiago Espinal, Austin Hayes bobblehead. There you could vote on.
I sent it to Elliot. Yes. The fan bobblehead vote. You choose the player. Andrew Rabbit, Christian Encarnacion Strand, Jamer Candelario, Santiago Espinal, Nick Martinez.
I voted for Espinal.
I did as well.
I'll give you another name.
Okay.
No, I won't give you that name.
Ah,
Ellie De La Cruz.
great. I mean,
Great.
what are we thinking? 40-70?
I'm thinking 100.
I love it.
Because that's how positive I am.
Co-signed.
Casey, how positive are you about Ellie De La Cruz?
How many times will you say Ellie De La Cruz and Chattanooga in the same sentence this year?
0.
Okay, wow.
Positive.
Positivity.
Positive. That's how positive this show is.
That's great.
Austin Hayes. He's hitting 310 this spring.
Wow.
310.
Wow.
That's why you go out and get a big name outfielder like Austin Hayes.
Spend the big bucks, 5 whole mil.
Is that your positive?
Yeah.
5 mil? Jake Fraley. My best friend Jake Fraley, who again, I love. Not very good this spring last season.
Or last season, yeah. So, Jake Fraley,
Locker-
second favorite Twitter meme of anyone in our outfield with his face on the rake.
Okay, I like that. I like that a lot. Harry in the chat wants to know, are you being mocked? Absolutely not. We are being positive.
We are.
This is a positive
This
show.
is positivity.
You guys want the positivity. This is as good as the
Look,
positivity I
if
can
you
get.
have more positive things to say about these players that we're naming, feel free to help me out. Colin Will with the question I think everyone's probably asking, where does the Friedel meme that was the number one. Number one, pull balls go Burr.
Again, I don't mean to be disrespectful when talking about the Reds. I don't mean to dash at anybody's attitude for this season. It's just as somebody who goes to a lot of Reds games, I go to 25 games a year, guys. I go to a lot of games. I watch a lot of games.
You going Thursday?
And I get no, probably not. I imagine not. We get beaten down more than anybody. So when I talk about the season and all I asked for was no injuries, and I get injuries, I get upset. Okay, I apologize. If you guys want to have fun, go have fun. We got Chatterbox Reds. They're going to do all the positive stuff in the world. So you go to that one. I love you guys listening to this one, but if you want to go to that one, you go to that one.
You get more positivity.
There has to be a balance. We can't all be the most positive person in the world. I'm the negative person. You guys still watch me because of it. I love you all. I love you all very deeply. But here's my thing. I have to be negative. It's just in my nature.
I don't know where a lot of these wonderful folks get their positivity.
Yeah.
We've been watching different organizations for the last 20-plus years.
Yeah, and here's the go. And here, yeah, I mean, Mouse Cop, Chatterbox, we hate on our local teams. I don't hate on our local teams.
Do you think the outfield of Stuart Fairchild, Jake Fraley, and Jacob Hurtubise is going to be great?
I am a Cincinnati Bearcats basketball fan. They have not made the tournament in 6 years. What am I to be happy about? I am a Cincinnati Reds fan. They've made the playoffs 4 times in 30 years. What am I to be happy about? I'm a fan of the Cincinnati Bengals. They've missed the playoffs back-to-back seasons. What am I to be happy about? So I'm trying to find the positives, guys. I'm trying. But I've been beaten down when I talk about the Cincinnati sports teams. FCC, I'll give you that one. I'll give you FCC because I am just outwardly negative just because I don't like soccer.
Correct.
That's a fact. I'll point to the chat on that one. But everybody else, I'm mostly I come into the season with mostly positive vibes. Last year for the Reds, I was as high on the Reds as I've been in my lifetime. And what did they do? They lost a lot of games.
A lot of them.
So I'm going to try to be positive. I apologize for anybody who wants to have a positive week. It's opening day week. I love opening day. I'm going to watch opening day. I'm going to cheer for the Cincinnati Reds on opening day. And I want them to crush my expectations, my preseason expectations of what this team's going to be. I want that all to happen. I just can't get it in my brain right now where it's going to happen. So we're going to start. I have to bring us down. I have to bring us down right down here. And then by the time that the season starts and maybe we win a couple games, that bar just keeps going up. And then we get to be excited then. Because I don't want to be excited now and have my feelings crushed.
While we're on the mode of positivity.
Yeah.
Reds won 77 and 85 last year. Over or under?
Over under that? Positive segment, over. It's a positive segment, Jake. It's a positive segment.
Every time I look up the Reds last year and realize that they won 77 games, I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
Positive.
I'm glad we got a positive segment in because that is going to do it for us today on the radio.
On the radio. Everybody have a very pleasant Monday in Dayton. We love the city of Dayton.
We love the city of Dayton.
ESPN 1410, Wing AM.
Elliot kept that headset on.
I did. I at this point, it's just stuck to my ears. Andrew Dunn, how much money responsibly will Elliot and Jacob wager on Reds players during the game on Thursday?
27 outs. I would say I bet on at least 40 at bats.
Yeah, I mean, live bets. If you include the live bets, that number could get real high.
Absolutely disgusting that the Reds are favored.
Yeah.
Give me a juicy plus sign. Let me hunt some dogs on opening day.
I would love to. I'm going to be betting on every Reds prop in the world. Every player that I just said that we weren't positive about, I'm going to be positive about, and we're going to bet all their overs, and we're all going to have fun. We're going to have fun, damn it. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to watch the Cincinnati Reds, Casey McAllister, and I'm going to have fun, goddammit. That's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing. We're going to have fun. We're having fun. I love the Reds. I love them. I love them.
This is by far the healthiest way I've went about a Reds season lead up.
By far.
I mean, last year.
Why?
Last year we were winning the World Series.
Why risk our feelings? Why risk that? Why? I don't want to risk my feelings.
No, this is about self-preservation and emotional protection.
I just want to feel happy, and this is how I get happy: is by thinking that the sky is falling, everything can't get worse, and then we win games, and I get real high. I get real excited.
Maybe I just tail the FanDuel parlay the game every day. Every game.
That would be fun.
162 times.
That would be fun. People forget. You know who won us the game on opening day last year? Do you forget?
Well, CES was not opening day, wasn't it? Sunday.
Yeah, it was I'm talking about opening day. Opening day. Do you know who won that game?
I don't remember.
The unlikeliest of heroes.
Nick Martini.
Nick Martini hit 2 home runs on opening day.
That's right.
I mean, could you imagine?
That's right.
Closing your eyes and our sweet prince Stuart Fairchild coming into the game hitting 2 home runs. That's what you have to look forward to. We can get it.
Wouldn't that
we can
be
get
more
this
of a Blake Dunn?
Yeah, sure. Blake Dunn can hit 2 home runs too.
Hartebeest?
I don't know if he's going to make the team. I don't know if
one of him or Blake Dunn will.
It's going to be one All-Star. Is it too early to start talking All-Star with these guys?
I mean, since we brought the name up, it is important to say thank you, Jacob Hurtubise, for your service.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I love Jacob Hurtubise, and so does Jimmy.
So does Jimmy. Shout out Jimmy.
R.I.P. Jimmy. Sean Connor. Yeah. So listen, everybody. I'm very excited. Have fun tomorrow in Dayton. We're all gonna have a good time. I think Kirby's going to that game. I think maybe Trace. I don't know who's going to the game. Other people are going to the game in Dayton. So I hope it's the most fun game that we've ever seen. And then I hope opening day is followed by that. I don't go to opening day a lot of the time. I don't know.
No?
Jacob, you try to go to opening day a lot.
I haven't missed opening day in a long time.
Really?
Long time. I drove up all 4 years of college. Went off to high school.
Yeah, I'm not a big opening day guy because, as of you guys know, I'm not a big crowd guy. So obviously, it's the most crowded game of the year. I'm not going to go to opening day and sit and I also don't really drink that much, so I don't really get drunk. And part of the experience is getting drunk with all those 40,000, 44,000 people down there and having fun. So I'm just I like going to a bar and watching the game and hanging out and being kind of stress free.
I am in a predicament.
You're in a predicament?
And I brought it up to Casey, and I kind of need and I guess the chat can help us out too. I need your input.
Okay.
Alabama's Sweet 16 game tips off in what's going to be about the 6th inning.
Okay.
I can't leave opening day early.
No.
But I have to.
But that's why you stream it on your phone. What game is it on?
I think it's going to be on Max. I think it's on CBS. Okay. Like main CBS.
Hey, listen, if you get it on Max, you just watch it. You got that. I would bring a set of headphones.
And just
one ear it.
Lock it in.
One ear it.
Okay.
And then you're walking out listening to it.
Okay. All right. Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I go radio.
That's what I think.
Maybe go Bama Hoops radio.
Is that a thing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Chris Stewart. Great call.
Then that's what you do. That's what you do.
I'll be the only person with a radio headset on in Great American Ballpark listening to March Madness.
Yeah. Yeah. Electric.
Not Tommy Thrall.
Colin Will, Elliott. Yeah, I mean that's a good reasoning. Do I look like a guy where that would benefit me a whole lot? No, probably not. So I sit at home and I sit in silence while I watch my Cincinnati Reds. Because I will not be turning on the television listening to that. So I will be probably having Tommy Thrall on the radio, most likely.
Oh yeah.
Tommy Thrall and the Cowboy, my guys. So
getting the that was what was that 2-3 years ago when MLB TV dropped that where you can do the radio audio.
Yeah.
That's the greatest invention of all time.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
It's phenomenal.
Absolutely love it.
Mouse Cop says Chatterbox has turned him into a Cubs fan. Well, go do it.
Yeah,
buddy.
that's a lot more fun.
Go do it. Cubs spend money and they win games.
Yeah.
If we spent money and won games, I'd be more of a Reds fan than
if I had no soul and no heart, I'd jump ship to a better team too.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's
sadly,
about.
I was born here, and the 275
the
loop has a grip on my heart.
I was with a couple Xavier fans yesterday, and I won't call them out by name, but there were a couple of them that said, depending on the coach, I'm done rooting for the Xavier Musketeers. I'm done. I'm going to go cheer for Kentucky. And I saw a lot of that. How hard is it, in your mind, to jump ship from a team? Is it impossible?
I tried to. I tried to stop rooting for Ohio State my first year at Bama.
Really?
I just can't. I couldn't do it. So yeah, I really don't think I just don't think it's in my makeup as a sports fan. I mean, the back end of the Dalton years, I was in high school, and I wished I was rooting for a better team, a more fun team, and that's just wasn't the case. And I tried. I mean, Derek Carr was the MVP out in Oakland, and I loved that Raiders team, and I tried to watch them every Sunday. And obviously watch the Bengals too, but yeah, I can't quit. I can't quit these teams, and I really wish I could.
It's just
if I could get
get
off the Reds, I would.
It's in our blood.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to sit here and be negative about the Reds. I love the Reds. I watch the Reds. I support the Reds. I give them my hard-earned money. That's what I do for the Cincinnati Reds. I just get let down time and time again. Okay, that's all this is. What did Mouse Cop say? Call him out by name. Yeah, I was with a couple Xavier fans. There was a couple NIL things that he bought, I guess. There was, again, I will not call him out by name. There was a couple NIL purchases he bought. There was, I think, a glass of bourbon Dumped that right out in the sink, broke the bottle, and threw it away.
Nice.
There was some shirts that he had, burned those.
I'm glad.
Set them right on fire.
I'm glad Xavier fans are handling this well.
Yeah, I listen. So and they only do it because they care. They care about Xavier. So when somebody leaves them, they're sad. That's what we are too, right? With the Reds, yeah. Casey, I'm sure you're like that with some of your teams. So that, like the Colorado Avalanche, who isn't sad about the Colorado Avalanche?
That's right.
When they lose a game or two.
McKinnon just got 1,800 points.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, guys, I
saw the graphic.
I'm also feeling pretty down. I haven't spoken much on this show today, but there's not much to be excited about. Let's just be honest, right?
Let's
just be honest with ourselves. Like this is since we started this show in 2022. This is the lowest point of all Cincinnati sports.
Oh,
by far.
Is that right?
By
Distantly.
far.
Is that right?
Distantly. The first year of the show, they made the Super Bowl.
Since we started the show, this is the lowest point all of Cincinnati sports.
They've missed back-to-back tournaments. UC still hasn't made a tournament. Xavier just lost their coach.
Yeah, it is pretty bad, isn't it? I try to be positive. I guess we're not going to get there, though. We try to be positive.
It is certainly the thing I'm most jealous of a lot of people in the chat.
Yeah.
They're borderline shocked some days that we're negative on the Reds, and even the Bengals at some points during this offseason.
Why would anybody be shocked on the Cincinnati Reds?
I'm not saying this as a backhanded compliment or trying to be snarky or anything. I genuinely wish I could feel some of that.
Yeah, I wish I could.
Some of that optimism, some of that no matter what happens, this team's going to be fine when the season opens up. I don't have that really.
I think there was some of that magic early with for Bengals fans, like with Joe Burrow, you just had that optimism, right? Yeah. You had that with even Ellie and the guys coming up. That sort of window for me, it's past, it's gone. It's time to get a little more serious and a little more realistic. Yeah. And right now, it's just not a good spot.
It's just not a good. My mom asked me yesterday, "Hey, when do the Reds play?" Exactly. Could you imagine just not knowing when your teams played?
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
So nice.
It's about not caring. That's what caring about sports is. It's about not caring.
It's getting to a point where, at least for me, I've become apathetic to the teams.
Worst place to be.
Worst place to be.
And here's the other thing too, and I think this is a little bit. I was very lucky to get this job, and we're all lucky, and we get to talk about sports, and that's our job. I will say, having to talk about the Reds every day, if you thought I was a negative fan before I got here, I am triple the negative fan I am now. Just because you have to talk about them.
Yeah.
And when you have to talk about losing every single day, it's tough.
And they haven't given you anything positive to talk about.
No. Maybe they'll extend somebody. Yeah. Who knows?
To be fair, Cincy B, I see that you're saying apathetic on Sports Talk Show. The Bengals really killed me this weekend after learning how they structure the contracts. Because either they're just completely, just financially illiterate, which I don't think that's the case, or they're not trying to maximize their window to win, because you don't just have an extra $10 million sink it into these contracts like they did, when you could just prorate it out and get that extra $10 million and then invest into other players.
Yeah.
There's holes on this roster, and they're just actively saying, no, we're not gonna financially maximize our cap space. And it's just what are we doing?
I see some people in the chat, and I just put it in there, but saying you guys are up complaining you weren't alive in the early 90s.
Love you, AJ.
You mean the early 90s right after the Reds won the World Series?
They did win a World Series in the early 90s.
If you say early 90s, that's 91 through 95. That's within 5 years of a World Series.
AJ, that's a World Championship.
That's all I want.
And several playoff appearances in there.
It's all I want. 95, they advanced.
Yeah, AJ, that's a World Series championship. I've never experienced a World Series championship.
I've never experienced a playoff series championship.
If I get Mouse Cop, maybe we should get hosts who aren't 20-year-olds. Yeah, listen. If you would like somebody else to host, that's you can sub them in. I'll sub out. You go find them. You bring them in here, and I'll sit outside. That's okay. I'll do that for you guys, the chat, who I love deeply. But listen, I'm gonna give you the spin I have on it, and the spin I have on it is that I haven't won a lot. I haven't seen a lot of winning. So shout out to the Bengals. They've given me my only real happiness.
That's right.
But that's all it is.
We'll get another run, hopefully by the end of Ellie in Reds. We get a run there, and then one or two more with Burrow. Is that like the dream, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we get a championship out of that.
Maybe.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice.
Your boys in orange and blue, they winning anything yet?
They've actually sucked this start of this season, so I'm feeling real down.
Well, the good news is season's 9 months long, 10 months long, so by the time, next February comes around, they'll be good to go. But yeah, listen, that's it. Everybody, I want you to know that I have tried to be as positive as I could. And I'm going to be positive. As the build-up for opening day looms, I'm going to be more and more positive. And then I'm going to tell you right now, once opening day happens and we lose that first series to the Giants, it's going to be more negativity this year than you've ever seen in your life.
No, I'll probably just join you.
Yeah.
Here's our promise. The next couple days, we're going to be very positive.
Unless someone gets hurt in this minor league exhibition game.
Unless there's some negative news.
I mean, if Ellie gets
there's
hurt,
a chance.
If he gets hurt, anyone gets hurt in this exhibition game, it will be the most negative show in the world.
I'm not even going to pay attention to the game. I'm not going to watch the game. I'm not going to hear about the game because I know deep down if something bad happens during that game, you'd lose me. You'd lose me. You'd lose me.
You'd lose me.
You'd lose me.
Oh, no.
And I don't want to be lost.
Oh, no.
I don't want to be lost. I want to be found. And I'm hoping the Reds can find me this year again. That's all I've ever wanted. Terry Francona, take us to the promised land, sir. Please, I beg you.
He's got 15 wins in his back pocket.
Please. 15 wins. And again, I apologize for our youth. As Mouse Cop said, we're only 20-something-year-olds, so we try our best. We try our best with the positivity, and going forward, that's what we're going to try to do. Unless something bad happens, then I'm going to be real negative. But that's it. So everybody, have a very pleasant Monday. The sun will come out tomorrow.
Maybe.
If I had that video right now, I'd play it for you. The sun, when I sang "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow," if I had that video right now, I would play that for you. Actually, you know what? Can I find it? Let's see if I can find it in time.
Did you tweet it?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you tweeted.
Hold on. Everybody stay calm.
One of our greatest masterpieces we've ever.
That was the best we've ever. That was the best thing we've ever worked on, Casey. I'll stand by that. Hold on.
That was a great days of worth of work there.
That was fantastic. So if I did this and then I do Ian E chain 513. Let's see what we got. I see a lot of memes of my face photoshopped with his. That's always good. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. I just wanted to see myself sing. I don't think it's there. Oh well. We tried. I tried to find it. I couldn't find it. Maybe I'll have it by the time opening day starts. Other than that, everybody, Elliot, if I make... Real Spirit Cat says, Elliot, if I make a new baby picture of you, will that cheer you up? Yeah, it will, Spirit Cat. That one Photoshop was so gross that maybe if you make a new one, it'll make me laugh and smile and have fun.
When your hosts are down, we need you being the chat, to help pick us back up. And all I see is...
I think blind positivity is one of the most nauseating things in sports. Yeah. So I don't necessarily agree with that at all.
We needing the chat to help pick us back up?
I think blind positivity of following sports teams as fans is one of the most nauseating things to hear. When just no matter what happens, the team's going to be competitive, and if you say anything else, it's the end of the world, and you shouldn't be talking. I don't like that mindset, and I think that's what I try my hardest to avoid, is that blind optimism, which is definitely what I've fallen into the last couple of years, and that's why I'm attacking this Red season in such a different way.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna say not as a term of like tell me some positive things that's been on the Reds. I'm just saying, can the chat just be optimistic about anything? Can we get some optimism in the chat?
Yeah, get some optimism. We got any optimism?
Did anyone find out that they're having a kid or something, or that they're getting married? Just any positivity. Is there any happiness?
Yeah, I got one. I'm sending it in the chat right now, Casey. This is how we're gonna end the show today. This is how we're gonna end the show. Feel the rain on your lips. The thing I'm sending Casey was from, I think, my first week of working at Chatterbox, and I think it's time to be reminiscent of the good times. So Casey, whenever you got that, that's how we're gonna end today's show. It's going to be you're going to see this video and you're going to think of all the good times, and then we're going to close the show. So any final thoughts, Jacob?
No.
No, I don't have any either. I love you all. Casey, love you.
Love you.
Thank you.
Just reading the chat.
Thank you.
Kind of funny.
Thank you. Everybody, we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Here we go. All right, here we go. All right, no pain. Here we go. All right, here we go. All right, here we go. There we go.
There it is.
All right.
All right.
The boss had to come clean up the mess, literally and figuratively.
I don't get paid to clean up the mess.
Keep that shot. That's where we're going to go. Saying goodbye today. Thanks to all. Elliot, you're a good sport, my man.
Yeah.
Everybody have a great weekend. God bless.